Imagine coming home after a 13-hour international flight from a business meeting where you had the highest expectations, but due to one of your team members, it was a colossal failure. If that's not bad enough, your boss, who's an anal retentive asshole, is holding your feet to the fire and placing the blame for the bad turnout of this meeting squarely on your shoulders. Oh, and I can't forget this bullshit. While you're there, your girlfriend tells you that she wants to see other people. Those were the circumstances surrounding my return to the United States, and all I wanted to do was just get home, sit on the sofa, turn on the TV, and drink a beer. However, after a 2-hour commute in Atlanta traffic, I arrive at my house only to notice that something is terribly wrong. See, my house was built in a brand new subdivision, surrounded by woods. It sits on 3.5 acres of land, and the first thing I notice is my wooden fence is leaning. Hopping out of the car and walking around to that side, nope, it's not just leaning, it's broken. Okay, going into the fence where my 3 dogs should be, there is blood everywhere. Looks like a crime scene. Blood splatter all on the fence. My above ground pool is full of blood and fur, but I don't see any of my dogs anywhere. The wooden steps leading up to my little deck, which is next to the pool, are cracked and splintered. So now I'm standing there looking at all this, including the blood splatter all on the side of my house, thinking, now this is some bullshit. Going into the house, everything is fine. So I head up the street to my neighbor's house. Understand, this is my neighbor who I had paid $200 to feed and make sure my dogs had water and were okay while I was gone. And pause here in the story. I want you to remember, I'm fresh off the plane, tired, already in a bad mood. I'm trying to hold it all together. I knock on her door. He opens up and I'm like, so, did you see anything crazy going down at my house? Because my dogs are gone, the fence is down, and there's blood everywhere. Now get this. He replies to me saying, yes, I know what happened. A werewolf did it. Now remember, I already told you I was tired and moody. I wasn't in the mood for no foolishness. So I'm like, come on, dude. Really? What's going on? What happened to my dogs? That's when he says it again. A werewolf did it, and closes the front door. Then I go to my other neighbor. Understand, there's only 3 houses completely developed in this subdivision. I knock on her door. She looks at me through the window and doesn't even open the freaking door. So I go home, call the police. They come out, look around, and tell me it looks like a wild animal attacked my dog. No fucking shit, man. But what kind of wild animal knocks down the fence and leaves a murder scene like this? I'm telling you, my backyard literally looked like something from the movie Silent Hill. The police officer says he's not sure what could have done it, but he suspects that it probably was a bear. Takes a report and tells me to be careful, then leaves. So now, after flying all freaking night long, I'm outside trying to clean this mess. Nothing could be done about the fence. I go ahead and pull the plug on the pool, draining the water, take a bucket, add bleach, water, and soap, and scrub the blood, which is now drying off on the side of my house and my windows. Spray everything down because flies are now starting to swarm, and that's when I find the ear to one of my Labrador retrievers. Listen to me when I tell you, at this point in time, I'm just tired and pissed off. So I head inside, take off my clothes, and get into the bed, light a joint, and doze off to sleep. The next morning, I had to work and get my ass handed to me by my boss. And when I tell you, emotionally, I'm distraught and just freaking over everything. Like, I'm over everything. So I head home early, take a Xanax, and fucking sit there on the sofa, contemplate my life, watching Netflix, eating comfort food until night falls. Get this, I head up to my bedroom, circling around the bed, glance out of the window, only to see what looks like these eyes looking at my house from the woods. These huge eyes are reflecting this red color, and I'm like, nah, man, hell no. This couldn't possibly be something standing out there looking at me in the woods. But then the eyes blink, and I'm like, holy crap, this is real. So I head outside with my flashlight and shotgun. Now pause for a moment because I need you to understand something. I didn't know anything about Dogman. And as far as I'm concerned, werewolves were things of movies. So I circle around the front side of the house along the fence, shine a light into the woods, and nothing's there. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, now you're fucking hallucinating, you're stressed out. I rationalize everything away in my head. The only thing I could think of is maybe, just maybe, like he said, it's a bear out there. We definitely have black bears in Georgia, so I write it off, go inside, head to bed, trying to put my mind to rest so I can get back to work. However, the next night I realized something absolutely terrible was out there in the woods, way worse than any bear. And my neighbor, who I asked to watch my dog, was the problem. Because about 9 p.m. that night, I hear shooting. Not like handgun shooting, but rifle shooting. I grab my shotgun, head out of the front door, into my front yard, and realize that the shooting is coming from his house. And understand, like I've explained to you before, it's only the 3 houses back there. So now I'm heading over to his house, knocking on his front door. His wife comes to the door, hair all over the place, robe on. The woman looked like she just dodged the 18-wheeler on the freeway. Her eyes are wide open, and she's like, "It's back, it's back." She literally pulls me into the house, pushing me through the living room, into the kitchen, through the back door, which leads to their raised patio. And there he was on the edge of the patio, shining a light and shooting into the trees. Now looking into those trees, there's what I would describe as a wolf man jumping down from the tree. And that's when my neighbor lays it all on me, saying, "That's what killed them dogs." He puts down his rifle, picks up 2 freaking grenades, pulls the pin on one, chucks it into the woods, pulls the pin on the other one. I'm like, oh shit, I'm expecting an explosion, shit flying all over the place. Instead, it's this loud, deafening bang sound. And while my ears were still ringing from the first bang, I hear another one. Hands over my ears, he's now pulling me back into the house. I can't hear shit he's saying. I'm confused. His wife is standing there trembling. I'm reading his lips as he's mouthing, "It won't be back for a while." Listen to me when I tell you, it took damn near a solid hour before I could even hear right. And that's when this man tells me the truth. That creature showed up and he started shooting at it. And he decided to take my 3 dogs out into the woods with him looking for it. But he couldn't find it. Early that morning, he heard it at my house slaughtering and killing my dog. So he went up the road to scare it off, but by the time he got there, the damage was already done. His wife chimes into the conversation saying, "Why in the hell did you shoot at it in the first place? I told you not to shoot." According to her, she was the one who was in the kitchen and saw it walking on the backside of their fence. Its shoulders were above their 8-foot wooden fence. She tells him, anything that fucking big, you need to leave it alone unless it messes with you. Now, the 2 of them are arguing. He's saying it's my job to defend the house. She's screaming, and it dawns on me. Hold on. You got my dogs killed, got my fence broken, caused all these problems because you think you some kind of fucking werewolf hunter. So I tell them, listen, we're going to have to do something about this shit. I'm calling the police. That's when they tell me they had already called the police. So I tell them, let's call animal control. So we call the hotline. A guy answers, and I tell him the truth, straight up. My neighbor and I just finished shooting at a walking wolf. And the man on the phone goes silent. I mean silent long enough for me to have to say, "Hello, are you still there?" Then the man says, "Yes, sir, I'm here. What's your address?" I tell him the address, and then I ask him, "Hey, man, what should we do?" He says, "Did you hit it?" I'm like, shit, I don't know. But what I do know is it was big. It was so big, I don't think you could really miss it. That's what this man tells us the best advice he could give us is to stay in the house and lock the doors and don't leave the house until morning. Quite logically, my question to him is like, okay, so is somebody coming or what's going on? That's when he tells me someone will be there as soon as possible. Well, as soon as possible turns out to be the next morning at 7 a.m. because there's a knock at the door. Keep in mind, I have not been back up the street to my house. I spent the night in their house. This man, not dressed in any ranger outfit, no police uniform, nothing like that. knocks on the door and says, "You called about a wild animal." And I tell him, "Listen, this ain't no wild animal. This is a fucking wolf that walks around, jumps from tree to tree, and lands on the ground and killed my fucking dogs." That's when he asks us to escort him to the area. So we walk him around the house to the backside of the fence and into the woods. And this man tells us to go back inside while he takes a look. Listen, the dude walked back there in the woods for like 30 minutes, comes back to the front side of the house, gets his cell phone out of his car and makes a call, and then leaves. No closure, no goodbye, no "I found something," didn't tell us shit, just leaves. Now get this, after he's gone, we all realize that we asked him his name and he never even responded. He just straight blew past the question. So we didn't even know this man's name. Now, I'm fucking over all this shit. So I go home, get dressed, go to work late. When I come back home that evening, the road that leads to my house is blocked. There's a guy standing there and he tells me that I can't go home, that a hotel has been arranged for me. I'm like, nah, fuck that. I'm going home, my man. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I need to go home. That's when he pulls out a Homeland Security badge, flashes his gun, and says, "Listen, take this card, call this number, go to the hotel. You can come home in the morning. Trust me, this is better for you." Now, I'm sitting in the car in front of him. I dial this number. There is silence on the line for like 5 seconds. What I mean by silence is the fucking phone doesn't ring. It's just silent. Then this woman says, "Mr. Lewis." Then this woman says, "Mr. Lewis, a hotel room has been arranged for you at the Hilton Suites." Gives me the address and says, "Sorry for the inconvenience. You can return home in the morning." When I get to the hotel, my neighbors, whose house I had just spent the night in, are sitting in the lobby along with the other neighbor who refused to open her door. That's when I learned that the man returned, telling all of them that they needed to leave. So all of us sit there discussing this shit for the next few hours and finally come to the conclusion that there's nothing we can do. But we make an agreement that we're all going back home at the same time, 7 a.m. in the morning. So get this, the next morning we leave all at the same time. Our little caravan rolling down the road. When we get there, the roadway to our house is open. Pulling up to my house, the fence has been fixed. Going into my yard, the pool has been replaced. There is even new sod down in my backyard. And get this, my house has been fucking pressure washed. Now, walking up the street to my neighbor's house, the trees on the backside of his property have been cut and cleared. And get this, after that one night, there was nothing. Not a fucking sound. It was almost like every critter, creature, animal in the woods around that subdivision was freaking gone. Listen, my neighbors and I have discussed this extensively. We really have. And we all have come to the same conclusion. That whatever that thing was, Dogman, werewolf, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. Whatever it was, it belonged to the government. And they came and they got it. And that's why they repaired my house. That's why they cleared the trees. That's why they did everything that they did, was because it was theirs.
Before I share the story with you, It's necessary that we build a bit of a foundation here for mutual understanding. Many of you listening are from Western countries, with Western amenities, cars, coffee shops, grocery stores. People where you live are employed. Your people bitch and complain about living wages, racism, sexism, all while being used and abused. But let me paint a picture for you as to where I live. Unemployment is at 99%. There are no police. We have one store, and it sells everything. And at night, that same store becomes a barroom and a restaurant where families meet to have cheap drinks and hang out. 10% of our town has power. Most men work as fishermen, but there's no market for our men to sell their fish. So it's mostly what we eat, fish, 3 times a day. Now, the majority of our furniture is handmade from swamp reed, our second most abundant resource. And it is in these reeds where this thing you call Dogman resides. The day we had our encounter, my sister and her husband had been given 3 chickens, and we needed to build them a coop. So early the next morning, we took my husband's boat and headed to the swamps to cut some reeds. The plan was to dry them out and use them to build the chicken coop. We get to the area where the reeds are, climb out, and get to clearing, putting the reeds in a pile near to the boat. Now, our entire town uses these reeds, so there's an unwritten rule about when and what to harvest. Understand, we use a yearly rotation, allowing reeds to grow to their maximum length, about 13 to 14 feet in most cases. Picture this, we're there clearing those reeds, and to get to the other side where the reeds are larger, you would need to use the boat or swim about 30 yards across the water. And when I tell you that there was absolutely no sign that this thing was there standing in the reeds, there was no rustling, no breathing, no growling, nothing. Nothing but this feeling that something was watching us. We both felt it at the same time, and God, when we turned around, looking across that water where the tall reeds were, there it was. You could see it clear as day. This wolf head, yellow eyes, shoulders, neck, and huge black ears twitching back and forth. This creature was there, just looking at us, watching us. I need you to understand how tall this creature was. Its shoulders were at the top of those reeds, 12 to 13 feet tall, and its head and ears had to be every bit of 3 to 4 feet taller. We immediately fall to our knees and begin to pray, because here in Romania, you see many demonic things. People go missing all the time. And if this thing was going to take one of us, we wanted to make sure we were right with God before we left. Standing there looking this creature directly in the eyes, I fell to my knees and continued to pray, not wanting to look away from it. And as I prayed, it started to slowly back away. It didn't run, it didn't rush, it just slowly backed into the reeds until we couldn't see it anymore. Understand, where I live, there are no cell phones. No one was coming to help us. So we stayed there on our knees praying in the sun for over an hour. Then took the reeds that we gathered already and left. When we returned home, we told our husbands exactly what we saw. They gathered men from around the town and went back to that exact same spot. And they found where that creature had moved out of those reeds across the water, right through the very same spot where we were down on our knees praying, continuing deeper into the swamps. Understand, life has changed in our town since this encounter. Everyone is scared. They keep their kids inside at night. No one even goes to the bar anymore. And when the sun is down, our village is a ghost town. Listen, no one around here knows where this creature came from, but we all just wish it would just go back.
The story of Steve Gilliam. The swamps of Louisiana have always been a dangerous place, filled with predators that have absolutely no problem with taking a bite out of you. Now, for as long as I can remember, I felt comfortable when outdoors, especially in the swamps and the bayous of Louisiana.
As a kid, we played, hunted, fished, crabbed, crawfish. We did everything in the swamps. And so for the life of me, I never ever imagined that I would get lost in those very same swamps. Looking back on the incidents of that day, if you had told me that I would lose my bearings or get lost, I would have bet you my right testicle that would have never happened. But somehow, it did. And to this day, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what the hell happened. It was a Saturday morning. I got the boat ready and headed to the bayou. My plan was to do some fishing. You see, I wanted to catch me some big alligator garfish. Now, if you never fished for garfish before, let me explain to you how it's done. In the back of my truck, I had 10 empty extra large laundry detergent bottles. You know, the plastic kind, the orange ones, tied, fishing line, and a bucket with some old chicken thighs. When you're trying to catch big garfish, you don't use a rod and reel. They're too big and they're too strong. They'll break your rod and pop the line. So what you do is you tie a line to a plastic bottle, put a hook on it, bait it, toss it in the water, and go on about your business. Now them gars, they some ferocious fish. So when they strike, it's an 85-90% chance that they're going to get hooked. Once you got one on a line, all you got to do is chase down that floating bottle, grab it, and pull that big boy into the boat. Now, that was my plan for the day. Drop 10 lines in the water across a 3-mile stretch of the swamp, travel back and forth all day pulling up lines and taking in fish. I had my radio with me, cell phone, extra bait, 4 beers and 4 bottles of water, with a bag of cracklings. I get the boat launched, and I'm headed out to the area. Again, I have been doing this my whole life. You go through a few twists and a few turns, and then you hit this straight path that it runs for about 8 miles in one direction before you forced to loop back around and turn back south. I get to that stretch of waterway and start tossing my lines in the water. After laying all 10 of them out in the water, it's time for me to light my cigar, cast my rod and reel, and try and grab me a few catfish. Catching catfish is how I pass the time in between pulling in the garfish. A solid hour passed to me throwing the rod and reel in the water, reeling in a little bitty catfish, nothing that I wanted to take. So I started to head back the exact way I came in. Now I'm moving about 35 miles an hour. My cigars in a plastic bag, which was sitting right in front of me, start blowing, and they're about to blow away. Now this is where shit starts to get crazy. I look away because these cigars are starting to fly off and I'm reaching for them. And I end up grabbing that bag with the very tip of my pointing finger and my thumb. And when I turn back forward to put my eyes back on where I'm going, right in front of me is this thing that looks like a mirror, but it's got cracks in it and it's broken. You can see through it to the water on the other side, but the edges had this kind of bright glow to it. The next thing you know, my boat is going through this thing, and instantly, when I tell you instantly, it's fucking dark outside. Pitch black, midnight darkness in the swamps. Now I'm riding and looking around and saying to myself, what the fuck is going on? It's dark. The moon is out. I look down at my cell phone and the battery is dead, and I bring my boat to a complete stop. Now listen to me. I don't know what the hell was going on, but now I'm sitting in the middle of the swamps. The environment is completely different. The land, the trees, and waterway is completely different than what I had just seen. And now I start hearing these growls and these freaking roars. Shit that I've never ever heard before in my life in the swamps. It sounded like someone had a loudspeaker playing the noises from Jurassic Park. Then I hear something plunge into the water. You know that kabloosh sound. And I can see ripples coming through the water ahead of me. Let me explain to you like this. Freaking out and flipping the fuck out had already happened. When I heard whatever it was plunge into the water, I went beyond that to a whole nother level of panic because this shit was unreal. So now I'm flying through the swamps that I'm unfamiliar with, only guided by moonlight. And I ride around for the next 5 hours trying to figure out where I am until I come up on this bridge. and I see cars passing over the bridge. So now I literally drive my boat up on land, climb up this incline to the side of the road, and flag down the first car that I can see. The guy driving the car had to think I was absolutely insane. I say, "Excuse me, sir." The look on his face is like he's talking to a fucking idiot. I say, "What time is it, sir?" He looks and says, "It's 11:30 on a Sunday night." I proceed to ask the next question. "Well, where am I?" The guy looks at me like I'm on drugs, and I can't blame him. He panics, drives the fuck off. Not another car passes for about 20 minutes, and then a big rig, 18-wheelers coming. I stand out in the middle of the road and flag him down. I'm able to talk this guy and let me use his cell phone, and I call my wife. She answers the phone damn near in tears. "Honey, where are you? We're looking for you. We don't know what happened to you." Turns out, I am 150 miles away from where I launched my boat. My wife has called the police. My son and his friends are in the swamps looking for me. Everybody is freaking out. They thought I was dead. I wait there for another hour and a half for my son to go get my truck, drive to where I am, and then we have to find a place to pull the boat out of the water. When I'm finally in the truck with my son and he asks me what happened, I try to explain it to him. He looks at me like I'm on PCP. And again, I don't blame the poor child, because I need you to understand something. In order for me to get from the body of water that I was in, originally fishing, to this new place where I was at the side of the road by the bridge, I would have had to take my boat out of the water, drive it on land, up the highway, and relaunch it, because there was no connecting waterway to get from one to the other. And I tell you what, I know for sure I didn't freaking sleepwalk, drive my boat back to the launch, put it on a trailer, pull it out of the water, drive 150 miles to a whole nother location, relaunch the boat in the middle of the night, and then try and do some damn fishing. That's not what happened. Somehow I went through some kind of portal or doorway that something or someone was using, and it dropped me off 150 miles away from where the hell I was. Right into Jurassic Park.